Hello and welcome to Lesson 10, Stop Enslaving Men Through Lies. Dear ladies, in my first book, Living Free in the Feminazi World, I created the remedy for men to live in freedom even though you women are demanding that those who wish to have the vote act as your own personal thugs and gangsters to steal from men. I successfully lawfully rescinded my consent to be governed in 2009, and I refused to pay any alimony or child support for the children that were alleged to be mine, but for whom no paternity test was done due to the obstruction of Jennifer. In that book, I teach men that they can lawfully refuse to pay alimony or child support because these two things are voluntary. Over the last 6 years, you have no idea how many women have written to me saying things like, alimony and child support are mandatory because the government says so, or everybody knows that alimony and child support is mandatory. Of course, dear ladies, you also know that I have many thousands of women call me all sorts of names for lawfully refusing to volunteer to pay the costs of my own criminal abuse. The fact that I have proven to men that alimony and child support is voluntary and men do not have to pay it has been one of the points of most contention among women. It shows very much what hypocrites women are on the point of equality. If you are equal, you do not need alimony or child support, period. If you are equal, you do not need men with guns and cages to extort money from a man. You make sure that you arrange a contract that is agreeable to both up front. The enslavement of men via lies and deceit by women is totally unacceptable to me, and it should be unacceptable to you too. If you cannot get a man to labour for you out of love, if you must lie to him and deceive him in order to gain the proceeds of his labour, or worse, if you descend to the depths of extortion and threat of violence and force by men with guns at your command to force him to hand over the proceeds of his labour, do not expect us men to believe the lie of, I love you. Extortion, guns, cages, but I love you. We know this is a lie coming from a woman, and it has always been a lie. We know that I love you actually means I love what you can provide for me and my children, and if you do not provide it voluntarily because you love me, then I will lie to you and deceive you to get what I want. And if that does not work, I will call the goon squad in the government to come and work you over and take what I want by force. We understand that is the common modern meaning of I love you from a woman. Us men have seen enough women do this that we are no doubt this is what you Western women mean when you say, I love you. So in this chapter, I'm going to include the whole of a chapter from my first book, How Are Men Enslaved? I will add my comments at the end. So here it is, How Are Men Enslaved? It was chapter 8 in that book. And it's addressed towards young men. Something that most people never actually take the time to stop and think about is the answer to this question. How are men enslaved? I am amazed to see that almost no one has the balls to actually answer this question. You can read all the books you like by the leading researchers, and none of them will tell you just exactly how men are enslaved. I find it interesting in itself that this is totally omitted. To make it very, very clear how men and women had to be socialized by the Illuminati, I developed a little anecdotal story. Of course, we do not know if it is true or not. The Illuminati may have done things differently, but the effect is the same in this story. I merely credit the elders as the Illuminati. And this is the woolly mammoth story. Let's say 20,000 years ago, Og and Oget lived in a little society that had found a nice big cave to live in, and they were all happy cave people. Each day the young men would go out and make war with the woolly mammoths to see if they could bring home the bacon. One fine morning, Oget kisses her man Og as he goes off to do battle with the woolly mammoth. She tells him how much she loves him and cares for him, and how much she admires him for bringing home the food for the children. Young Og is filled with pride and good feelings about his important role of feeding his wife and children. He is the picture of a good husband, father and citizen in his little tribe. The young men trop off with a few of their number left to guard the women and children from the roving saber-toothed tigers with ne'er-rivets and pointed sticks for defence. These young men are expected to fight the saber-toothed tigers who might wander by to their death if necessary. If they fail in this duty and do not die in the effort, they know they will be killed by the men returning from the hunt. So basically, they are taking on a mission to the death to protect the women and children. That's what the guards for the women and children are doing. Notice how no women are required to defend the women and children to their death. Not even the old women who are past birthing age because, despite the latest claims of equality and feminism from some other nearby tribes, the women in this tribe know that the men are stronger and that being equal might just see them as dinner for the saber-toothed tiger, right? Anyway, night falls and the young men return from the hunt. They have successfully killed and dissected a woolly mammoth and they have brought home food for a month. There is great joy and celebration in the cave. The sacred fire is stoked to cook the meat. Oget is all happy at the prospect of food for herself and her children and searches for her man Og to thank him, but she can't find him. Where is Og? Oh where is my beloved Og? Where is my beloved Og? Says Oget. She's soon told that Og, valiant and brave, had fallen victim to the woolly mammoth's stomping foot during the kill. He has died to bring food to his wife and children. All the young men shout praises to the dead Og and his bravery, and he is remembered in song. They cheer him and drink some of this funny stuff that they just learned how to make out of fruits that makes them feel good, and they sing his praises all night. But Oggy's still dead. Don't miss that point, okay? So Oget mourns the loss of her man for a short while, basically until one of the other strong young men who does not have his own woman offers her some food and they start chatting. If she is to have food for herself and her children, she has to align herself with a man. It's that simple. Welfare has not been invented. All the women know and have known for 20,000 years that a woman's affection must be immediately transferable. It's always been that way because it has to be that way. The plain fact of the matter is that for the last 20,000 years, men have died young in war and work, and it was necessary for the woman to be able to transfer her affection to another man who would feed her and her children very easily. So much for how much women love men. They don't. It's a lie. They love the food, they love the shelter that men provide. And when that is all taken care of, they will have diamonds and 5-bedroom houses too. But a woman loving a man, there's no need for it, so it does not happen. Anyone who has been in the divorce courts can see for himself how much women love men and how much they love what men provide. Big difference. If you have evidence to refute the abuse of men in the divorce courts, feel free to write your own book and publish it. But what of the young men? Well, a strong young man does not need to kill a woolly mammoth to feed himself. He can go and catch a rabbit or two and do quite well. Why in hell would he risk his life to kill a woolly mammoth when he can feed himself quite easily with almost no effort on his part? Well, the old men of the tribe know that in order for them, the women and the children to be fed, the young men of the tribe had to do all the work of collecting food. So the old men of the tribe brainwashed the young men of the tribe into the idea that their specific woman is somehow special, and that the most honourable thing he can do is labour as best he can to feed his woman and children. Oh, and he has to pay taxes of a little of his meat so the old men who are organising everything can be fed as well, right? So the old men invent love and they brainwash the young men into love and devotion and dedication and commitment and honour and integrity, All those nice words that we hear shoved down the men's throats so often, but which women know full well do not apply to them. After all, a woman can break her wedding vows and commit perjury with complete impunity, right? It's a woman's prerogative to change her mind, right? And so the young Oggs are sent out to make war with the woolly mammoths with little more than pointed sticks, because if the old men, the women and the children are to be fed and the overall group is to survive or thrive, it simply has to be done. If a few young Oggs die, that's not a problem, because it's always possible for one of the old men to take on the onerous duty of impregnating the unmarried woman for the good of the tribe, and to raise taxes to make sure the children are fed, right? It's perfectly possible for the old men to do that. So, in red and highlighted, the fact of the matter is that the young men are considered expendable by everyone except themselves. The only reason they do not suspect that they are considered expendable is because they are brainwashed. So ladies, we are telling the young men that you consider that they are expendable and that you're lying about things. And the young men are starting to figure out, hey, we are the expendable ones. Nobody cares about us. Male suicide, not an issue. Men killing themselves after divorce, not an issue. Nobody cares about us. The young men are finding that out. You know, expendable young men, what does that sound like? Sounds like soldiers to me. Therefore, what is most essential for a woman to find is one young man who has been appropriately brainwashed and indoctrinated by the older men into believing that the best thing he can do is find love with that special woman who he will marry and have children, and he will labour for the love of his life for the rest of his life, no matter that be short or long. That would describe me perfectly in 1984 when Jennifer first hit on me. I was a very good selection for her. Young man, the truth is this. The old men of a small tribe in a cave, or what you might call the Illuminati now, have known that the way to enslave men to be willing to work hard and risk their lives is by using the women to do so. It has always been that way. It does not always need to be that way. Now you are reading this book, you can be one more young man who refuses to be enslaved by the Illuminati by way of a complicit woman. And something very important for you to know, young man, the women have been very well aware of this setup all along. I was really surprised to find that out. In my life, all the women told the same lies, so they sounded like the truth. Women tell the lie that women will love a good husband and father and would never treat such a man poorly and would never injure his children. Women are consistently painted out as goddess, while men are consistently painted as evil and bad. This is the story of the enslavement of men. It has been this way since the serpent persuaded Eve to take the apple, and then she persuaded Adam. Eve persuaded Adam to partake of the apple, her already having done so. It turns out, and it was a surprise to me, that women are coldly calculating and manipulative, and they are in full support of the Illuminati enslaving men. Lots of women will hate me for saying that. Fine, please present your evidence it has ever been any other way. This is why women vote left and vote for big government. Ann Coulter has even made the statement that women should not have the vote, and she would be happy to give up her vote if all women did the same, because when women get the vote, what they do is plunder the finances of the government to create welfare states. There was a play by the Greeks called Assemblywomen, where the women snuck into the assembly with fake beards on and introduced a communist state. It was presented as a comedy. So the communistic nature of women has been well known for at least 2,500 years. It is not news to those who run the world. Young man, the men at the top want you to be their slave by working 40 hours a week, 48 weeks a year, for 45 years or so. Then they tax you to live off you like parasites. And the sad thing is that our women entirely agree with this idea. They are willing accomplices. This book will show you how to hold women accountable and stop them from being accomplices of the Illuminati. So, given that is 15 minutes into this presentation, I think it's time to take a word from one of our sponsors. And thank you very much for returning. I can still remember the first time I told this story to Sue 3. We'd had a lovely evening the night before, and we'd walked to one of my favourite places to have our morning brunch. It must have been about 11 a.m. by the time we were sitting down for brunch, and I told her that story. She looked at me steely-eyed and said, "You are so cynical." And I smiled a big alpha smile and said to her, "I may be cynical, but I also happen to be right. Women want what we provide, not us. Women do not care about the individual man at all. And I'm going to tell as many young men as I can that very fact." We talked some more, and I asked her why did she feel bad about the prospect of me telling many hundreds of thousands of men the woolly mammoth story. She was very reluctant to talk about her reasons. This was unusual for her, as she was also always so talkative and forthcoming in her reasons. Eventually she blurted it out. No man would marry a woman if he knew that women did not love him and just wanted what he provided, if he knew she was marrying him for his money. She was like, "So there, I finally said it," in a defiant tone. It was quite funny. I looked at her to see if she was serious. I thought she was joking, but alas, she was serious, and I burst out laughing at her, and that only made her angrier. Finally she said to me, "Okay, what are you laughing at? What is so funny about what I said?" So I said to her words to the effect, "Do you not know that many societies, especially societies where people are better off and where it is not a matter of survival of the woman and the children that she marry a specific man, the practice of arranged marriages has been used very successfully? For example, all across Europe for hundreds of years, the wealthy families used arranged marriages so as to keep the property in the family, as well as to secure alliances with other wealthy families. In India, arranged marriages are the norm. Even today, marriages are much more like a business deal than a matter of love. Arranged marriages work very well for both parties and their families because the whole family has a vested interest in making sure the marriage works fine. Indeed, look at what happens when you allow women to, quote, marry for love, unquote, and also allow them to divorce. You get 50% divorce rates and 90% of the men are unhappy in marriage. Indeed, it can be said that marrying for love and allowing divorce has been a huge disaster. In the story of Og and Ogette, of course, there would be no divorce because that would upset the harmony of the tribe. Once a man and a woman married, they would have to stay married. Do you not realize that us men don't actually care if our wives love us or not? We just care that they are good wives and mothers of our children. And I laughed hard and asked her again, "Do you seriously think that what we want more than anything else is for our wives to love us?" And apparently she did. I went on to explain to her that actually being loved by our wives was a long way down the list for any man to value his wife in as much as what men want from women. I explained to her that pretending to love a man or pretending to like a man was more than adequate for the vast majority of men. What was necessary was for the man to love the woman. That was all that was necessary for a marriage to work well. I explained that in the Bible, this is why it says, "Men, love your wife as your own flesh, but wives, honour your husbands." It does not say, "Wives, love your husbands as your own flesh," because men do not value the love of a woman that highly. Certainly I don't. I also explained to her that the whole idea of romantic love from the direction of the woman to the man was another lie that was created by the Illuminati. Since women were not capable of sustaining that sort of love over a lifetime, it was one more factor in brainwashing women into ideas that would undermine their marriages. I asked her, "Do you actually think Jennifer ever loved me?" I mean, she used my children as weapons against me, stole 95% of the meagre proceeds of what was left over from her excessive spending and raising 4 children. Do you really think that at any time she actually loved me? She took a long time over that and finally said, I hope this does not hurt you, but no, she could never have loved you and done that to you. She only ever loved the opportunity that you provided. You might take her out of poverty, and you did, but she used you. She lied to you every time she told you that she loved you. Does that not hurt you? And I said, well, I was very disappointed to find that out, of course, but that she did not love me does not mean I would not have married her so long as she was a good wife and mother. What was important was that I loved her. I then went on to say, take Sue 1 for example, and Sue 3 didn't know her personally but knew of her. I talked about them to each other. Take Sue 1 as an example. For her it is important that she loves the man that she marries, but it would not be important for the man himself, and she is caught up in the whole idea of romantic love. This has very much contributed to her problems of not being able to find a man to marry. She's waiting for a Prince Charming, the bolt of lightning, the knight in shining armour. And sure, this does happen. But that does not mean it will last any more than a few months or a few years. To be married for a long time takes commitment on the side of the man. Nearly all the benefits flow to the woman in a marriage, not to the man. The main benefit of being married for a man is the chance to raise his own children. In many ways, the most valuable thing a woman has to offer a man is the opportunity to have children and raise children. This is something that no man can do without a woman. That is something that we value very much. So being a good mother is very, very important. It's a very, very important part of being a good wife. If you take good care of a man's children and do as he wishes, he will die for you. He will die to protect you and his children. You see this all the time in wars. So please understand, even though to you it might seem cynical that us men know that women do not love us, they love what they provide. We have no problems with that at all. You asked me to tell you, I went on to say to her, you asked me to tell you how to be a good wife. One of the most important aspects of being a good wife is being a good mother to a man's children. Do as he asks. If he wants them to grow up in his religion, take them to Sunday school and sit at home and teach them his religion. If he wants them to play soccer, take them to soccer practice and to their games if he has to work. He will love you for following his wishes with his children. For any man, his children are nearly as precious to him as his wife. If the wife is bad, then perhaps the children are more precious. But if you ask a man what he can do to raise his children as he sees best, you will win many points as a good wife. No man would get rid of a woman who is raising his children to his wishes. By now she was smiling and very happy. She had learned a valuable lesson, and it was a lesson she very much wanted to learn. She had in her head the idea that it was very important to profess her love of a man many times over to win his heart and get him to love her back. She had been told this by friends. I told her that it is much more important to talk to a man about how you would raise the children of your husband exactly as he saw fit, and you would never ever do anything with his children that he would object to. I told her that by talking about these sorts of things, the men who were not family oriented would be driven away, which is exactly what she wanted, while the men who really wanted a good wife would be attracted to such conversations. I told her that since she was so beautiful, she would get a lot of attention from men who were, only after one thing, and they would lie to her in order to do so. I told her that it was as important for her to screen and reject men as it was for men to screen for and reject women who were gold diggers. Now, having related this story to you, dear reader or listener, I emphasize the point. You will occur as much more attractive to a good man who wants to have a family if you do not lie to us and manipulate us into marriage and children, as Jennifer lied to me and manipulated me into marriage and children. In short, just stop lying to us men. Really. It's that simple. In short, just stop lying to us men. There is no need for it. And women have done so much lying to us men, and it has been so socially acceptable, that we are just a little jaded and tired of all the lies and the deceit. We are jaded and tired of being made the protector and provider without the commensurate respect and social recognition that goes with that. Respect and social recognition costs nothing, and yet even that little is withheld by Western women today. Western women are offering nothing in return for turning men into slaves, using the marriage system to do so. Is it any wonder that there is a whole movement of men going their own way now? Dear ladies, it is simple. If you make a good offer and you stick to it, there are plenty of men who will marry a woman who is committed to being a good wife. Many men still want to have children. The desire is so high that many men are gaining children by surrogate mothers. Cristiano Ronaldo, the World Footballer of the Year this year, and once before as well, who has millions of adoring fans, both male and female, paid a woman to have his baby for him. One of the most eligible bachelors in the world refused to get married to have his child. This single man and this single act suddenly legitimized the idea of surrogate mother to the world's soccer fans, and soccer is the world's most popular sport, so the impact was massive. There are also many men waiting for the, quote, artificial womb, unquote. Many men make comments like, when the artificial womb becomes available, women as wives will be totally redundant. We will see how equal and empowered and independent women are when the one thing they have to offer that we cannot do is replicated. And you know what? You will become totally redundant as wives because the single most important thing you offer will have competition. And my dear reader or listener, you would do well to take notice that men are spending tens of millions of dollars every year developing female robots and making female dolls more lifelike. Women again criticize and condemn men for creating such robots. But the fact that men spend money on the development of such lifelike female dolls and robots should prompt this question in your head. This is, instead of attacking these men and criticizing, what you should be doing is asking this question. What is it about us women that makes us so unattractive to some men that they would prefer a lifelike doll or robot in preference to a real woman? Women always take the view of the sort, oh, if some man prefers a lifelike robot to a real woman, then there is something wrong with him. He's crazy. He's a loser. Women should stay away from such loser men. Women never take the view, how have us women contributed to the behaviour the men are exhibiting? You never ask that question. The lesson is simple. If you want to make yourself more attractive to a man who would be a good husband, if you want to gain access to the proceeds of a man's labour, and quite literally enslave him for the rest of his life as marriage is for a man, make him an honest offer and stick to it. Okay, just make him an honest offer and stick to it. It's not that hard. Okay, that's the lesson of this. That's the lesson to be learned from this lesson. Stop enslaving men through lies. Make him an honest offer and stick to it. Okay? Now, thank you very much for listening to this chapter. It's much appreciated.